towards the end of the play, where she has a moment of honesty with her maid about the nature of men, and they kind of toy with the idea of being unfaithful to her husband, of course not with the intention of doing it, but just pondering about the nature of women and how they too can cheat on someone just because they're human as well. So again, this whole idea of being human, the human experience, and Shakespeare really wanted to show that through a woman's lens. And mind you, during this time, as I told you last
There's a white square. Can you make that go away or not?
I'm sorry, what was that?
There's a white square over the notes with a triangle in the middle, and it's kind of blocked.
It's supposed to be a picture of that,
bothering her,
but it didn't load.
Oh,
for some weird reason.
Yeah, not just her; it's everyone.
Yeah, probably everybody's. So
I like
as
it.
I was saying, mind you that
what the heck?
society that is watching this play is seeing men act like women, right? But as they see that, and maybe it's funny for them because there's a man disguised as a woman, everybody from the lowest of the lowest in the class to the highest point in the classes, they all can identify, especially women, they all can identify with Desdemona's words, with her experiences, because at some point everybody has gone through this whole marrying and staying faithful to their husbands and being submissive, and yet not having a voice, and yet having this desire inside to voice out what they really think, what they really do. And so Shakespeare does a great job at taking this out and exposing it. Again, unmasking what women hid because of societal expectations, like Mara was saying. Everybody in Elizabethan culture had a mask. Men wore a mask, women wore a mask, people in high status wore a mask, people in the middle wore a mask, and people in the low classes wore a mask. You almost found no single person who was willing to show their true selves to the world, because as Jillian was saying, everybody was so afraid of judgment. And so Shakespeare, through his plays, I'll reference it as plural, he unmasks human identity. He unmasks these feelings that everybody's dying to show, but they can't because of society. So that's what he does through Desdemona and through Othello. Now, before we move on and I show you where the reading is at and whatnot, I wanted to show you, and please take notes on this. I know that it's a picture, but if you guys can take notes, here's some of the characters. So before you read, you're always going to have the senators of Venice. So that's a little bit of the government. We have Montano, the Duke of Venice, a great matter of Othello, Brabantio, Lodovico, Gratiano, and then we have Othello and Desdemona. And our character key says that these three are main characters. So these are not. These are just kind of around. You'll see them when you see the exposition. But Othello and Desdemona are definitely the protagonists. You already know that this is a tragedy. So the fact that this is a tragedy means what, Faith? What's going to happen to the main characters?
It means they're gonna die, probably.
Mm-hmm. You are right. It means they're going to die in some way. And so the play really unfolds in how is it that they get to that. And then we have Brabantio here. We have Cassio, who's an honorable lieutenant, in Othello's service, and Iago. He is usually around them, so he works in the same place. But he is definitely our evil guy. He is our antagonist. So he is against everybody else. And then he's married to Emilia. So Emilia is Desdemona's maid. So there's going to be some intriguing things between these two and some conversations that he obviously takes advantage of. Here's Bianca, who's in love with him. And we have Rodrigo, who's a Venetian gentleman and in love with Desdemona. So he plays a bit of a role in the whole tragedy because he's in love with her. And of course, she doesn't know that. So, and then we have Brabantio, who's her father, and you'll see he's a senator. So from the get-go, you know that she is from a high class. So she's from a good family, and then he obviously marries her, so he's a general in the military. And then you have everybody else here, the messenger, herald, sailors, officers, citizens. Because again, this was a play, so you'll have these minor characters.
Oh, I didn't know I was in it.
Where are you in there?
Clown.
Who? Oh, clown.
How to handle fame.
You're funny. Yeah, there you go. See? Okay. All right. No need to copy, but I wanted to show you guys. This is the structure of a Shakespearean tragedy. So much like any other novel or book, you have the exposition. So because Shakespeare, and go ahead and take notes as I speak, in the exposition, because he didn't have a curtain, so in his globe, as you saw, let me go back quickly to that. He didn't have a curtain like you would imagine. So he had to be changing a lot of things very quickly in order to show what the exposition would be like. So when you're reading, it's not gonna feel like it's the exposition. A lot of the stuff like lighting, the customs, the props that were around, and I don't know much about theater, but those of you who've gone to theater class, you know that that sets the mood. So some of the stuff that you read were actually in the theater, and some of them were just figuratively for the audience. The exposition also serves as a hook. So he presents his audience with something, with the first scene, and he tries to lure in his audience with that. Then we have the inciting force, which is an incident that usually introduces conflict and sets the whole thing in motion. So you'll see through Act 1 and Act 2, both exposition and the inciting force. Like that's the one thing that you almost tend to think when you're reading Shakespeare tragedies, like, man, if he would have not done that, none of this would have happened. So as you read, you'll see the inciting force. Then you'll see the hamartia, which are the errors of judgment. And usually this tragic or tragedy happens because there's an error of judgment from the hero in the tragedy. And in this case, who's our hero? Anyone?
Othello.
Othello. He is our hero. So you'll see some of the mistakes that he makes. And it's the result of these human flaws that he makes these errors of judgment. Of course, this error of judgment will later lead to his own downfall. And usually it's pretty tragic, of course, death. Though this error of judgment is visible to the audience, it is not visible for the protagonist. So the protagonist feels like his or her life is doing good. There's nothing wrong with him. He's thinking well. And of course, the audience is the one who knows, something is wrong here. You should have not thought that. You should have not assumed that. And so it is visible for the audience, but not for the protagonist in the story. Then, of course, you have the crisis, which is usually the tipping point. This is the turning point of the fortunes of the protagonist. These are the consequence of the error of judgment. And so after this crisis happens, the figure seems more controlled by the events than them in control of what's going on. The situation is a direct result of his or her previous actions. So it almost seems like Othello, when this crisis happened, he's no longer in control of his own emotions. And emotions are just so powerful that they really tend to lead the protagonist throughout this play. So you'll see a lot of people feeling hatred, feeling envy for each other, jealousy, Those are the main emotions that play a huge role in their decisions. And then finally, through the end, as the suspense is growing, you see a tragic force. So following closely after the crisis, this incident intensifies the downfall of the tragic hero. So something else is added on to that. This happens in movies a lot, where you go through the turning point, like this is the moment of decision, the crisis is going on, you feel like the hero is going to die, and then something else happens that adds on to that. So that's where the tragic force happens. And then finally, as you're getting close to the end, you have the moment of final suspense. So it seems like the hero is going to escape, that it's all going to be good. You know, they're kind of having you at the tip of the seat and seeing like, oh, finally everything is coming together. And you'll have a small glimpse of maybe things are going to be okay, but then finally you hit rock bottom with a catastrophe. So this is where mostly you have death,
Like high school.
you see, like high school. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. No, not really. But yeah, so you have the catastrophe. This is where everything unfolds. Of course, protagonists die, and then the tragedies don't end there. So you'll see that the end is not death. Something else seems to happen, and it almost feels like what Shakespeare does with his endings is that he doesn't want people to assume that just because the protagonists have died, the story ends there. Like everybody, you know, it's almost like a bigger picture. Just because a person dies, it doesn't mean that everything ends there.
Of course.
So I'm going to, let me look at my time. Okay, so we're not that bad. About 10 more minutes. Okay, so let me run through the other one. No need to copy any of this. Yes, ma'am.
Olivia got kicked out.
Why?
Okay. Is she trying to go back in?
Yeah, she's trying to log back in.
Okay, cool. What are you guys doing? Oh, I know. It seemed like a spoiler. No, trust me, there's so many things that you need to still learn. But I need to, like, Shakespeare is difficult to read. So if you don't know what the heck's happening, it's going to be even harder. So that's why I may seem like I'm spoiling, but maybe a little bit, but not that much. Okay, so here's Act 1 through 5. Again, Act 1, which you'll read throughout this weekend, is the characters, the setting, the exposition. Then what next week when we come back, we're going to read Act 2, there she is, through the conflict. Then Act 3 is the rise in action and climax. Act 4 is falling action. And finally, Act 5 towards the end. Everybody dies. I think they die here, though. Yeah. And so you'll see how that works. Okay. Let's see. That's the end. Okay. Let me see. Chat. Yes. Let me see. Thirsty woman. And explain the process of my life being okay. It's super glitchy. Okay, sorry about being or having trouble. Because, but remember, I am recording this. So if you didn't hear some of the stuff as I went through the PowerPoint and you were trying to take notes, you can always go back in the YouTube video. It takes a little bit long to upload them, but
It was the YouTube video that was
The
glitchy.
quality is always better on the
Oh,
YouTube
okay.
channel because it's a
Oh, really?
recording of her screen. Because it's actually her
Oh.
screen, so
Yeah.
it's way better.
So yeah, it's usually way better as of what I see, because in my, you know, I'm speaking fluently, and the recording is just taking my voice in. So if my internet is bad, then it'll become glitchy, but it's probably on your end, and that's why you can't hear me. So, but the YouTube video seems to be good. I've seen them. So yeah. All right. So let me go away from here. What you're gonna start doing now is you're gonna start reading. So if you go to the class plans, you find the text. And I just want to remind you guys, last year when we were doing Midsummer Night's Dream, I showed you guys a resource called Open Source Shakespeare, and it's really nice. Let me go back to place, kind of give you a little overview of the website. It's really nice for one big reason. It has a search button, so you can search up words, you can search up characters. So here's Othello, right? That's our play. If you, let's say you click on Iago, it'll show you all the dialogue that he ever said throughout the play, which is really cool and comes in really handy when you're trying to do essays and you're trying to figure out what did he say. And of course it gives you the citation. And by the way, since half of you who were freshmen weren't with me and a couple sophomores weren't with me, this is how you cite scenes. So Act 1, Roman numeral, and then Act 1, Scene 5. So it's always act and scene and line. There you go. Act, scene, and line. That's how you cite. You can also do, if you don't have a Roman numeral thing in your Word or in the slides, you can do 1.1.5. So it's always after point. I'll show you a little bit more next time, but that's how you cite line numbers. So it's not just line number, you have to do the act, the scene, and then finally the line number. Okay. All right. So I wanted to show you that. That's true for all of them. All the characters have their speeches. So let's say I wanted to look for Desdemona. There's all her lines throughout. And for some of them, you see an ellipsis and you click on it, it highlights it because it's kind of big to showcase in there. So you have here her little speech. So it's pretty useful, especially when you're trying to write essays. And of course, searching for a word, it'll let you know how many times it appeared throughout the play. So it's pretty cool. All right, so here it is. We have 5 acts. We have 5 acts. Sorry. Okay, so we have 5 acts. And as I already showed you, beginning, middle-ish or crisis, and then finally the last points. So what you're going to be doing today is you're going to start reading scene 1. Let me click on it really quick. There's scene 1, fairly short, and then you're going to also be reading scene 2. So 2 scenes. And I was trying to look for a way in which you guys could record your quotes, and I really didn't want to kind of do a one size fits all for everybody. So what I want you guys to do is record your important quotes in some way. So you can do a graphic organizer, you can do it in a dialectical journal, you can do it in pretty much in whichever way. If you just want a bullet points, that's okay with me as well. But I need you guys to record. You can even do this same graphic organizer that I built for the other project. You can make a copy of it and like change all these things, like edit this whole thing, put Othello in it. So something that would look like this, right? I would just make that copy. So this is the process that you would follow, making the copy. I would just, if I were you, I would just erase here, right? And I would just put Othello. I would take this question out and then keep it the same here. Maybe if I could, I would do scene 1, and then here I would put my quotes, right? And then maybe if I do 2 or 3 quotes, then here I would start with scene 2. And then add my quotes in my analysis. So I don't want to enforce what kind of graphic organizer you want to use. You can also use a Cornell Note style one. You can do a mind map, whatever way you can, to record your quotes. The only thing I'm going to require you is to record at least 3 quotes per scene. Okay, and of course only relevant information. And what is relevant? A lot of times I feel like some of you guys get confused on, okay, well, is this good or is this not good? Well, relevant quotes are those that talk about our theme, and our theme is human interaction, human flaws, the role of woman, role of man, etc. So in the beginning you won't find that many, but hopefully you can. So what you're gonna do for homework then is to do some kind of graphic organizer, put in your quotes for scene 1 and scene 2.
Ms. Roses,
Yes, ma'am.
did you say human interaction?
Yes,
The theme?
human interaction, human flaws. So anything that has to do with those, the role of woman, societal expectations for men and women, anything that has to do with those two, you know, if you see a glimpse of, oh, this guy is jealous, that probably is a good quote because you're gonna be talking about that in your literary analysis. So I want you guys to start recording since the get-go because you're gonna be writing an essay on these, and it's better to have stuff recorded than to be searching through the search button. Though you can search, you want to have a good idea of what it is that you want to have or record as an important quote. So your homework then is to read Othello, Act 1, and we did not begin reading Othello in class, so just Act 1, Scene 1 and 2. Fill out a graphic organizer, and I'm just going to put a graphic organizer. It does not have to be mine. It doesn't even have to be like this. You can though, or you can do a dialectical journal, whatever way you can. Whatever way you want is fine with me, okay? Let me go back to that. That's part of homework. And then you're gonna do the Khan Academy practice, the SAT practice. And you should be amounting to do 45 minutes of it. And that's all due on Tuesday. So let me add the place in which I want you to share. Oh, and also your graphic organizer doesn't have to be in the computer. Like if you don't want to write it on the computer, you can write it in paper and then just upload a picture of it. So let me do create assignment, and then I'm just going to put Othello, Othello scene 1 and 2, and I'm going to put graphic organizer. So I should see at least 6 quotes with their appropriate analysis. So it's not just about copying and pasting your quotes, though you can obviously do that because you have an online source. So if you just go like that and copy, you'll put it in your Word. But if you want to do it on paper, you can just copy the quote. And also remember, you don't need to copy the whole quote, copy a few words, but you do need to see scene number, act number, scene number, and line number. Those are the ways in which you record your lines. Where was I? There you go. Okay, so that is due on Tuesday.
And so you did need us to turn in our graphic organizers?
I need you to turn in your graphic organizer, to which you'll be adding more as we go. So this is due on Tuesday. And yes, I do need your graphic organizer, and I'm gonna make it be due before class. So 10 o'clock, no, not 10, 9 o'clock. So it's due before class. So make sure that you read and that you add your quotes in it, because, and I said read because I am gonna have a discussion board question that is pertaining with the reading. So make sure that you actually read, and you're gonna turn it in on that moment. So if you don't read, it can be a little hard to do it, you know? Another thing that I wanted to show you that I did not link, but I'll link it right now. There is a audiobook. Go to it really quick. I didn't. There it is. I think there's two. Othello audiobook. Okay. I was looking at this one. I think they're both the same, but I was looking at this one and this one seems to be a better copy. So let me copy the link. Copy. So I'll put here, I'll link it here in our class plans, Othello audiobook. And you can always listen to it if you go along with it as you read or just hear it for the time being. So, whoa, I did not want that. Undo, want this linked. Link, paste, apply. There it is. Okay, so I've linked the audiobook. I don't think there are timestamps for it. Oh, there is. Okay, so the one person here wrote some of the timestamps. So you can see Act 1, Scene 1 is 2 minutes and 33 seconds according to the reading. And then Act 2, Scene 2 is a little longer. It's 12 minutes. So I'm not assigning that much. If you take a little longer, maybe not 15 minutes, but like 30 minutes reading, 30-minute reading is not huge. So there is your audiobook version.
The shameless plug to this person's channel.
Okay, so there's that. So again, read Act 1, Scene 1 and 2, grab quotes from there. You are gonna have a question regarding the reading, so make sure you read. And that, oh, and then do your SAT practice, your Khan Academy SAT practice. Questions. We kind of gotta run because we're out of time. Questions on what you're supposed to do? No?
Nope.
Okay. Go ahead.
I said nope.
No? Okay, perfect. All right. Then I'm gonna stop sharing here. Stop the